Chapter 1. The Magnetic Power Within You. What you attract is not based on what you want. It's based on who you are. It's based on what you radiate, what you allow, what you expect, and what you're prepared to receive. And in this chapter, we are going to break the illusion that life happens to you. You're going to understand that you've always had the power to shape reality, not through force, but through frequency. There's an inner spark inside of you, constant, stable, waiting to be activated by conscious attention. When this spark is understood and cultivated, it becomes a magnet. It draws toward you opportunities, people, situations, breakthroughs, and clarity that align with your highest path. But before anything shifts outside of you, you must become intentional about how you show up inside. Before we go deeper, if you're ready to unlock this power and shift from reacting to attracting, take a moment to like and subscribe. The insights you're about to receive are meant to become a foundation you can build on daily. Let's begin. You've been told to focus on external steps, strategies, tactics, effort. And while action matters, action without internal alignment is empty movement. It's not sustainable. It creates effort without reward, results without peace, motion without meaning. But the moment you shift your focus from external control to internal authority, everything changes. That inner spark, that internal state, is the origin point of everything you attract. You're not here to hustle endlessly for what's already trying to find you. You're here to get out of the way. You attract what you're ready for. And readiness isn't about time. It's about energy. If you're constantly in doubt, worry, hesitation, scarcity, then no matter how hard you work, you will repel what's meant for you. You will push away opportunities because your frequency is not open to receiving them. The spark inside of you doesn't need more effort. It needs more space. It needs clarity. It needs consistency. It needs a signal that says, I'm no longer chasing, I'm aligned. Let's define alignment clearly. Alignment is not perfection. It is not about feeling good all the time. It is not about positive thinking. Alignment is the clarity between who you say you are and how you actually live. When your thoughts, your language, your behavior, your expectations, and your emotions are all pointed in the same direction, you become magnetic. Not in theory, but in actual results. People respond differently to you. Ideas flow more easily. Time expands. You get into rhythm with the reality you want, not because it's magical, but because you're no longer contradicting yourself. And contradiction is the silent killer of attraction. You say you want peace, but your calendar is full of obligations that exhaust you. You say you want growth, but you surround yourself with distractions. You say you want clarity, but you keep overcommitting, multitasking, and avoiding silence. That's not a time problem. That's not a productivity problem. That's an energetic split. You're sending mixed signals into the field. And the field responds to clarity. It doesn't give you what you want. It gives you what you continuously allow and embody. The first step to activating your inner spark is emotional ownership. You must take full responsibility for the way you feel, moment by moment. Not because you're to blame, but because you're in control. You cannot attract anything consistently while outsourcing your emotions to external events. If your mood is determined by people, results, or circumstances, then your power is unstable. Your signal is reactive. And reactive signals are not magnetic, they're erratic. To shift this, you must stop waiting to feel good. You must decide that your baseline energy is not optional. It is the source of everything you are calling in. That means protecting your attention like it's sacred. Because it is. Your attention is your amplifier. Whatever you give it to grows. If you give it to fear, fear multiplies. If you give it to noise, noise expands. If you give it to regret, regret becomes your timeline. But if you give it to presence, presence sharpens your power. If you give it to possibility, doors start opening. If you give it to inner clarity, external confusion begins to dissolve. This is not philosophy. It is physics. Your energy either concentrates or diffuses. And your life reflects the consistency of that focus. Stop giving attention to things that don't align with who you're becoming. That includes conversations, content, environments, and inner narratives. Audit your inputs. Not because you need to be perfect, but because your frequency is too valuable to be wasted on things that don't serve your expansion. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you say no to your alignment. And you don't just attract with your thoughts, you attract with what you tolerate. Raise your standards. Not from ego. From awareness. The higher your standards, the clearer your signal. The clearer your signal, the stronger your magnetism. When you allow less of what depletes you, you become available for more of what matches your power. And that's when the shift happens. Not all at once, but gradually. As you stop managing life and start embodying your frequency. As you stop negotiating with fear and start committing to alignment. As you stop settling for anything that doesn't reflect your truth. The inner spark isn't a motivational high. It's not hype. It's not adrenaline. It's still. It's steady. It's quiet and firm. It knows. It doesn't need constant stimulation. It thrives in clarity. It grows in consistency. It's not about being excited, it's about being grounded. And when you move from this space, your decisions change. You stop chasing. You stop justifying. You stop explaining your worth. You start becoming the kind of person who doesn't need to manifest more, because they've already become the version of themselves who attracts by default. You don't attract from the mind. You attract from the body. You attract from the nervous system. From your presence. From how safe and available you are to receive. You attract from how consistent your frequency is, not how hard you try to be high vibe. And this means building a life that supports your nervous system. That means regulating your mornings. That means protecting your evenings. That means eliminating energy leaks in your day. Because every leak steals your magnetism. And you're not here to be drained, you're here to be deliberate. Every time you regulate your breath, you reinforce the signal. Every time you protect your boundaries, you reinforce the signal. Every time you stop explaining and start embodying, you reinforce the signal. This is the real inner work. Not constantly fixing yourself, but maintaining the clarity of your signal. And it starts right now. In this moment. Not tomorrow. Not when life slows down. Now. Because now is the only time you are transmitting anything. And the only time you are creating the next version of your life. Chapter 2. Your life reflects your dominant vibration. That is not a metaphor. That is a pattern. You are not attracting from what you occasionally think about. You are attracting from what you consistently feel, consistently expect, and consistently allow. Your energy doesn't lie. Your nervous system doesn't lie. Your environment doesn't lie. If there is misalignment, it is not personal, it is structural. If you want to shift what flows toward you, you must first shift what you are continuously broadcasting. Not with affirmations that sound good, but with decisions that align your actions, your focus, and your internal state to match what you claim to be calling in. This is not about pretending to be positive. It is about becoming deliberate. You do not attract ease by talking about peace. You attract ease by eliminating the habits, the thoughts, the reactions, and the loops that constantly create chaos in your day. You do not attract abundance by writing down a goal and hoping it happens. You attract abundance by stepping into the mental and emotional state of someone who no longer entertains scarcity, who no longer performs worthiness, who no longer chases outcomes to feel complete. Your signal is determined by your baseline, not by your peak moments. You don't attract what you do occasionally, you attract what you normalize. If your nervous system is wired for survival, then even when life is quiet, you will feel chaos. Even when opportunities come, you will sabotage them. Even when people offer support, you will push them away. Not because you don't want success, but because you've made a habit of operating from states that cannot hold it. Your subconscious does not care what you say you want. It defaults to what is familiar. That is why changing your frequency is not about doing more, it is about retraining your internal experience so that it feels safe to receive. Until it feels safe, you will reject what you say you are ready for. So the first layer of real attraction is nervous system regulation. If you cannot sit in silence without panicking, your system is not ready to receive. If you cannot experience a win without immediately looking for the next problem, your system is not regulated. If you cannot rest without guilt, your frequency is still tied to survival. And nothing sustainable can be built from survival. You must normalize calm. You must normalize success. You must normalize being supported, being seen, being heard, and being in control of your attention. And that requires more than mindset. It requires repetition. It requires simplicity. It requires habits that are so small they become unshakable. Breathe. Slow your movements. Speak less and with more intention. Stop over-explaining. Stop seeking approval. Stop multitasking while claiming to desire peace. Peace is not a product of your environment. Peace is a practice that you must carry into everything you do. Peace is what sharpens your magnet. It creates space in your field. It clears noise from your signal. And without that signal, nothing aligned can find you. Because you may want new things, but if your inner system is still looping in old fear, you will only attract more of what matches that fear. You are not what you think. You are what you hold. And what you hold shapes what stays in your life. You do not just attract based on desire. You attract based on retention. Can you hold what you're asking for? Can you sit with expansion without sabotaging it? Can you receive support without finding a way to disqualify it? Can you experience quiet without needing to create distraction? Holding is not about strength. It's about stillness. It's about capacity. And capacity is built by reducing contradiction. Every behavior that opposes your stated goals is a leak. And those leaks must be closed not with pressure, but with clarity. Your energy field is constantly updating. Every thought, every behavior, every decision adds weight to the signal you are sending. If your decisions contradict your values, your signal is noisy. If your behavior contradicts your desires, your signal is unclear. If your expectations contradict your goals, your signal is inconsistent. And when your signal is inconsistent, the field cannot lock in. You receive mixed results because you're broadcasting mixed intentions. The correction is not intensity, it's congruence. Congruence is built through discipline. Not external discipline, internal discipline. The discipline of attention. The discipline of thought. The discipline of emotional stability. The discipline of filtering out what doesn't match your future. That's where the real work is. Not in effort, but in emotional neutrality. In your ability to respond, not react. In your ability to maintain clarity when pressure arises. In your ability to act from alignment instead of emotion. That's when your signal becomes powerful. That's when the field starts responding immediately. Not because you demanded it, but because you stopped contradicting it. You cannot out-hustle misalignment. You can only outgrow it. You grow beyond it by stopping the behaviors that reinforce it. You stop entertaining thoughts that create fear. You stop surrounding yourself with people who normalize drama. You stop participating in conversations that dull your clarity. You stop saying yes when your body says no. You stop pretending to be okay with what drains you. This is not about being positive, it's about being precise. Precision is the shortcut. Precision is what magnetizes outcomes. Because when your signal is clean, the path becomes obvious. Most people don't lack opportunity. They lack bandwidth. They're too distracted to receive. Too overwhelmed to notice alignment. Too reactive to maintain clarity. Too inconsistent to build real momentum. You don't need more information. You need more repetition of what already works. The same rhythm. The same routine. The same reminders. The same core practices that keep your state regulated and your attention clean. The work is not in doing everything. The work is in doing the right things long enough for them to build a foundation strong enough to hold the next level. Every time you choose simplicity over chaos, you build signal strength. Every time you close a loop, your focus sharpens. Every time you say no to an energetic mismatch, your field becomes more precise. Every time you clean your environment, you reduce cognitive noise. Every time you listen to your body instead of your fear, you return to alignment. That's the inner spark. Not a moment of inspiration, but a lifestyle of consistent alignment. A frequency that no longer bends to emotional noise, outer pressure, or distraction. A standard that becomes so normal, anything less feels foreign. You are the pattern. You are the anchor. You are the signal. You are the spark. And the world responds to that, not to your effort, not to your performance, not to your image, but to the signal you hold when no one is watching. That's where everything begins. That's where everything shifts. Chapter 3. Attraction is not something you chase. It's something you calibrate. It's not a strategy. It's a frequency. And the difference between those who constantly attract the support, momentum, resources, peace, and breakthroughs they need, and those who always feel stuck and exhausted, is that the first group has stopped trying to control everything externally and has started mastering their internal states so consistently that it creates a natural gravitational pull. That pull is not mystical. It's built on alignment, clarity, and consistency. And it begins with how you relate to time, attention, and emotion. You attract from your rhythm. If your rhythm is chaotic, your life reflects that. If your rhythm is clean, focused, deliberate, calm, then the opportunities that match that pace find their way in. But most people are not living from rhythm. They are living from interruption. They allow urgency to dictate their decisions. They allow distractions to shape their output. They allow emotional swings to replace intentional planning. And then they wonder why their life feels like it's always behind. But they're not behind because they're doing too little. They're behind because they're doing too many things that are misaligned. You must become ruthless with what you allow to shape your state. That includes what you consume. That includes how you start your mornings. That includes what gets your attention without earning it. Your attention is the gate. Every time you hand it out without precision, your signal weakens. Every time you entertain thoughts that do not serve your alignment, you break the coherence of your field. Every time you let external drama become your internal noise, you distort your frequency. And frequency is not metaphor. It is literal. Your emotions are electric. Your body is magnetic. The field around you is real, and it responds only to consistency. You don't attract based on effort. You attract based on coherence. And coherence means all parts of you are aligned. Your thoughts, your emotions, your actions, your expectations, your behaviors. When there's even one part out of sync, your signal becomes noisy. You may not feel it in the moment, but the field does. And the field doesn't reward confusion. It responds to clarity. You can't trick the field. You can't say one thing and feel another and expect a clear result. You get what you broadcast, not what you wish for. To fix this, you need practices that bring your system into coherence quickly. You need rituals, anchors, patterns that you can rely on no matter what your emotions are doing. You cannot keep letting how you feel determine what you attract. That's why your environment matters. Your routines matter. Your self-talk matters. Every small habit is either reinforcing alignment or breaking it. There is no neutral action. Everything feeds the signal. Every hour you live is building or blurring your magnetic clarity. Audit how you use the first hour of your day. That hour is the signal booster. That hour sets your pace. If you begin in reaction, distraction, or anxiety, your field becomes unstable. Your system becomes disorganized. And once you start from chaos, you spend the rest of the day trying to get back to baseline. But when you begin with stillness, with focus, with conscious breath, with mental clarity, with emotional neutrality, you start from power. You give the field a clear instruction about what today will reflect. And the field responds accordingly. You don't need a long routine. You need a clean one. One that regulates your nervous system. One that protects your attention. One that calibrates your expectations. One that gives your body and mind the clarity to say, this is who I am today. This is what matters. This is what I allow. If you don't define it, the world will define it for you. And you'll attract whatever chaos matches the undefined version of you. Stop giving your energy to the old version of yourself. Every time you act from fear, every time you delay alignment, every time you pretend not to know what the next right decision is, you reinforce the timeline of who you used to be. And the more you repeat that energy, the more life sends you experiences that validate it. Not because the world is punishing you. Because the world is listening to the signal you're broadcasting. You say you want expansion, but you act like someone who expects contraction. You say you want peace, but your behavior reflects addiction to noise. That is not a mindset issue. That is a signal issue. And signal issues are fixed through structure, not motivation. Your structure must reflect your standards. Not your schedule, your structure. The way you wake. The way you breathe. The way you choose what gets access to you. The way you respond to pressure. The way you protect your recovery. The way you move through discomfort without breaking your rhythm. You don't attract clarity by force. You attract clarity by building a life that stops tolerating contradiction. And that means being consistent with the smallest things, not just the dramatic ones. Clean your language. Stop saying you're overwhelmed if you haven't even planned your week. Stop saying you're stuck if you've ignored your body's signals. Stop saying you're blocked if your environment is filled with clutter, distraction, noise, and unreleased emotion. The language you use feeds the identity you reinforce. And that identity shapes what you receive. Words are not casual. They are calibration. You don't use language to describe your life. You use language to design your life. Every word is a vote for what stays in your field. And stop performing alignment. You don't need to look like you're doing it right. You need to feel it. You need to live it. You need to become so grounded in your inner rhythm that the outer world no longer dictates your behavior. You become someone who doesn't need to prove worth. You no longer use effort to replace alignment. You no longer chase things to feel complete. You become the kind of person whose baseline energy is so regulated, so focused, so intentional, that you attract by being, not by effort. Being is not passive. It is the most powerful form of action. Being means your internal system is organized. It means your thoughts serve you. Your emotions follow direction. Your behavior reflects your values. Your speech is precise. Your standards are clear. And your energy field is no longer shaped by fear, urgency, or other people's expectations. Being is how you hold the version of you that's already aligned. Being is how you tell the world, I am ready. Attraction doesn't begin when life gives you a sign. It begins when you stop waiting for signs. When you start trusting the frequency you've cultivated. When you act like someone who believes in the future they're building. When you protect your signal like it is the most valuable thing you own, because it is. Chapter 4. You cannot consistently attract what you secretly believe you don't deserve. No matter how many affirmations you repeat, how many strategies you follow, how many goals you write down, if your identity is rooted in lack, fear, or unworthiness, your energetic signature will block what you consciously desire. This isn't about blaming yourself. It's about becoming so aware of the energy you live in daily that you can no longer ignore how much of your life is a reflection of your internal dialogue. You attract what your nervous system is trained to expect. You don't receive what you wish for, you receive what you've normalized. And what you've normalized is not always what you actually want. Many people have normalized struggle. They have normalized being behind. They have normalized emotional chaos. They have normalized relational tension, financial anxiety, inner criticism, external noise. And because they have normalized it, they unconsciously recreate it, not out of desire, but out of familiarity. They attract people and situations that match their practice baseline, not because they're cursed, but because energy always seeks equilibrium. You become a vibrational match for the things you emotionally tolerate and justify, not for the things you occasionally dream about when you feel motivated. To change what you attract, you have to change what you emotionally agree to. Not just in words, but in habits. You cannot say you're ready for peace if you continue to let overstimulation be your default state. You cannot say you're ready for abundance if you still treat your value like it's negotiable. You cannot say you're ready for clarity if you keep escaping the present moment by numbing, avoiding, distracting, delaying, or outsourcing your truth. What you call normal is often what is keeping you stuck. Every single day, you are teaching your subconscious what to expect from life. You do this not with thoughts alone, but with behavior. With the tone of your inner voice. With the way you organize your space. With the way you respond to resistance. With how you treat time. With how you treat yourself in the quiet moments when no one is watching. The standards you reinforce in those moments become the code that shapes your magnetism. That is why attraction is not emotional hype. It's behavioral alignment. Your results reflect your rituals. Build rituals that match your desired frequency. That's where the work is. Rituals that train your mind and body to hold a new baseline. That anchor you in emotional safety, in nervous system stability, in conscious clarity. Not for aesthetics, not for productivity, not to perform for social media, but to clean the signal you're sending. Because your life is a mirror, and the mirror reflects precision, not potential. It reflects your consistency, not your ambition. It reflects your embodied frequency, not your surface-level affirmations. Your rituals don't need to be complex. They need to be consistent. You need a non-negotiable way of waking that regulates your body before the world has a chance to interrupt it. You need moments throughout the day that bring you back into coherence. You need a method for closing the day that reinforces what you're becoming, not what you fear. You need silence. You need order. You need simplicity. Not to be rigid. To be strong. Because without rhythm, chaos becomes the baseline. And chaos will not attract what you're capable of receiving. What you want isn't out of reach. It's just blocked by layers of noise you haven't learned to remove yet. That noise is in the form of disorganized thought, unresolved emotion, poor boundaries, lack of rest, unclear intentions, and outdated narratives that say you have to earn worth through effort. But you don't. You earn results through clarity. You earn access to alignment by training your system to stop expecting pain. You earn ease by refusing to feed the energy of guilt, shame, pressure, or chaos. Attraction is about safety. If your body does not feel safe holding the thing you want, it will reject it. Not consciously, but subtly. You will deflect praise. You will delay action. You will ignore support. You will disconnect from the very thing that matches your stated goal. That's not a failure. That's feedback. It means your inner system is still wired to expect disappointment, to expect loss, to expect effort without return. And to rewire that, you don't need to try harder. You need to feel safer. You need to treat regulation like a spiritual practice. You need to start measuring progress in terms of how well you return to center, not just how much you get done. Holding the vision means being available for it emotionally. That means clearing the parts of you that are still bracing for the worst. It means calming the parts of you that are used to surviving instead of receiving. It means reteaching your nervous system that presence is not a threat. Stillness is not laziness. Receiving is not weakness. Being seen is not unsafe. And your inner voice is not wrong for wanting more. You can't receive what you attack. You can't receive what you resent. You can't receive what you're still arguing with internally. You have to clean the resistance before the reality can land. That resistance is in your thoughts, in your language, in your automatic behavior. Every time you say, "I don't have time," you're reinforcing scarcity. Every time you say, "I'm trying," you're reinforcing uncertainty. Every time you say, "I hope it works," you're reinforcing doubt. That's not conscious intention, it's unconscious sabotage. Train yourself to expect good. Not in fantasy. In frequency. Train yourself to stay calm when you win. Train yourself to hold focus when it gets easier. Train yourself to stop creating new problems just to feel familiar. That's what most people do. They hit alignment and sabotage it because ease feels too quiet. But quiet is the space where magnetism builds. Quiet is the place where ideas land. Where momentum organizes. Where intuition becomes loud. If your life has no quiet, your attraction power is diluted. Refuse to let busyness become your identity. There's nothing noble about exhaustion. There's nothing powerful about being overstimulated all day. Real power is being able to say no to chaos. Real power is being able to stay regulated while the world spins. Real power is when you're so grounded in your internal pace that nothing external pulls you off. That's magnetism. That's the spark. That's the moment you stop chasing anything and life starts realigning itself around you. Not because it changed. Because you changed how you move. When you stop negotiating with your energy, everything improves. Your decisions become cleaner. Your standards rise without force. Your schedule reflects your truth. Your body feels safe to rest. Your field stabilizes. And you begin attracting from fullness, not lack. You start receiving from confidence, not control. You start magnetizing from clarity, not need. That's how the field responds to you. Not with randomness. With reflection. Chapter 5. What you expect becomes your experience. Not because you control reality directly, but because your expectations shape your perception, and your perception filters the information you act on. When you expect things to go wrong, your body prepares for stress, your attention focuses on what could break, and your actions become reactive. When you expect ease, your body opens, your attention softens, your decisions flow, and your frequency stabilizes. You're not controlling the outcome by expectation alone. You're determining what your system prepares to receive. And the field responds to that preparation with opportunities that reflect it. Most people don't attract what they want because they haven't reconditioned what they expect. Their goals live on the surface, but their nervous system is still expecting interruption, disappointment, pressure, or instability. And your body can't hold a frequency it doesn't trust. That's why mental intention is never enough. You must recalibrate what your system assumes about your life. That's the real inner work. Not forcing optimism, but consciously shifting your baseline from tension to clarity, from doubt to direction, from chaos to precision. You begin by examining the expectations that shape your daily behavior. What do you expect when you wake up? What do you assume will happen when you try something new? What do you anticipate when you speak your truth? What do you prepare for when an opportunity shows up? Most people are unconsciously preparing for loss. Preparing to be misunderstood. Preparing to be let down. Preparing to struggle. Preparing for conflict. And preparation is powerful, because what you prepare for is what your body rehearses. If your body is rehearsing stress, stress becomes the anchor, and everything you attract will feel heavy. But you can retrain that. You don't have to wait years. You don't need to figure everything out first. You start by practicing safety in the small moments. When something goes right, let yourself feel it fully instead of rushing to the next task. When you rest, do it without guilt so your system learns to associate calm with growth. When something aligns, reinforce that it's not a fluke, it's feedback that your new frequency is landing. The more you reward alignment internally, the more your body builds trust. And trust is the foundation of every powerful frequency. You cannot attract from tension. You cannot attract from burnout. You cannot attract from overwhelm. Even if you're doing all the right things, if your nervous system is living in constant urgency, your signal is unstable. That doesn't mean you stop moving. It means you stop associating movement with fear. You stop building from panic. You stop reinforcing urgency by calling it ambition. Urgency is not ambition. Urgency is trauma. Urgency is what your body learned when it thought everything was a crisis. But your highest frequency is not chaotic. It is structured. It is steady. It is rooted in calm authority. Start speaking to yourself like someone who is no longer at war with time. Stop narrating your life through fear. Stop over-identifying with pressure. Stop assuming the worst. And stop calling it realism. It's not realistic to expect constant tension. It's familiar. Familiarity is not truth. Familiarity is a program. And every time you repeat a negative expectation, you run that program again. To stop the program, you don't fight it, you replace it. You say something better and you act on it immediately. You give your system new proof. You don't wait for the evidence. You create it. And that evidence doesn't need to be dramatic. It starts small. You complete a task and you affirm, I always finish what I start. You speak your truth and you affirm, it's safe for me to be seen. You get one moment of clarity and you affirm, my mind is becoming sharper. You build a new rhythm and you affirm, structure supports me. You keep doing that. Over and over. Not as performance. As programming. Your life is the sum of the programs you rehearse. And your energy field is the broadcast of those programs. That's why attraction isn't magic. It's repetition. The people who attract what they want aren't lucky. They're consistent. They're decisive. They're clear. They hold a frequency that doesn't shake when resistance appears. They don't need to fake positivity because they've built real emotional stability. They don't chase things because they've trained themselves to be available for them. They don't wait for motivation. They act because action is part of their identity. They trust their pace. They trust their timing. They trust their signal. And that's why the world responds. You become magnetic the moment you stop seeking approval for your alignment. You don't need everyone to understand your rhythm. You don't need everyone to like your clarity. You don't need to explain your silence. You don't need to defend your standards. You simply need to keep living like someone who has already decided that alignment matters more than temporary comfort. That clarity matters more than confusion. That energy matters more than appearance. You keep showing up for yourself in ways that make your nervous system feel safe, your attention feel sharp, and your body feel grounded. You don't attract what's exciting, you attract what's consistent. That's why habits matter. That's why rhythm matters. That's why systems matter. The way you eat, the way you rest, the way you move, the way you communicate, the way you choose what gets your time, these are not small things. These are the building blocks of your signal. The more intentional you are with your foundation, the less effort is required to attract what aligns with it. You don't need to shout your goals. You need to live like they're already part of your structure. Live like someone who respects their time. Live like someone who protects their focus. Live like someone who doesn't tolerate self-abandonment. Live like someone who is no longer emotionally addicted to stress. Live like someone who sees rest as power. Live like someone who doesn't need to prove anything because their energy already says everything. That's the shift. That's the spark. That's what becomes irresistible. Chapter 6. Everything you attract is connected to the level of self-respect you operate from daily. Self-respect is not about self-image, and it is not based on how others treat you. It is the invisible structure behind your decisions. It is the unspoken force that defines what you allow, how you respond, what you tolerate, and how deeply you trust your own inner direction. The state of your life is often not a reflection of effort or intelligence, but of how consistently you honor your standards when no one else is watching. The inner spark that pulls aligned opportunities into your life becomes most powerful when it is protected by boundaries that are not emotional but structural. Boundaries are not emotional reactions to being hurt. They are intentional designs for sustainable alignment. They are not built to block people out. They are built to protect your energy, your clarity, and your ability to stay regulated as you move through life. Without boundaries, your inner spark dims, not because you've lost it, but because you've diluted it. You've handed pieces of it to every demand that calls for your attention. You've given it away in moments when you knew the answer was no, but your conditioning told you to say yes to avoid guilt, conflict, or rejection. The power you reclaim when you learn to protect your boundaries calmly, directly, and without apology is immeasurable. That power doesn't come from dominating others. It comes from no longer needing to betray yourself. It comes from no longer living in a constant negotiation between what you feel and what others expect. And when that negotiation stops, you become clean. Your frequency becomes clear. Your decisions start reflecting alignment. Your life begins to organize itself around integrity rather than emotional survival. There is no magnetism in a life built on self-betrayal. You can't attract clarity from a chaotic foundation. You can't attract peace when your system is built to please. You can't attract expansion if you constantly contract to keep others comfortable. Your alignment is not supposed to be convenient for others. Your standards are not supposed to be comfortable for those who benefit from your lack of boundaries. The field doesn't respond to your people-pleasing. It responds to your energetic authority. And that authority is not loud. It's steady. It's clear. It's built from repeated decisions that say, I no longer abandon myself. Self-respect shows up in how you speak to yourself when you fall behind. It shows up in how you treat your body when you feel overwhelmed. It shows up in how you manage time when no one else is tracking it. It shows up in how you end the conversations that drain your nervous system and how you no longer entertain energy that pulls you out of your rhythm. You don't earn self-respect through performance. You embody it through consistency. And consistency is not perfection. It is rhythm. It is stability. It is showing up in the same energy enough times that your system finally believes the new baseline is real. Everything starts with how you treat your time. Time is not just a schedule, it's a boundary. If you constantly break your own schedule for the comfort of others, you're not being kind. You're being unavailable to your future. Every time you say yes to something that drains you, you are saying no to what was designed to support you. When you overgive your energy to every request, every crisis, every emotional wave, you lose your center. And the longer you stay off-center, the less clarity you can hold. And without clarity, attraction becomes inconsistent. Magnetism becomes sporadic. Your inner spark doesn't disappear, it simply stops having space to breathe. Clean time is sacred energy. The cleaner your time, the sharper your signal. The sharper your signal, the more direct your attraction becomes. That means your calendar is not just a list of obligations, it's a reflection of your values. You don't overbook your week and expect to be magnetic. You don't fill every hour and expect your nervous system to stay regulated. You don't ignore rest and expect clarity. You become magnetic by making space, not just in your schedule but in your mind. You eliminate clutter, not just from your closet but from your thoughts. You simplify your inputs. You reduce the number of open loops. You let go of the idea that you need to prove your worth through output. There is a direct correlation between the space you create in your life and the quality of what shows up. Most people don't need more to do. They need less to manage. They don't need more strategies. They need fewer contradictions. Every contradiction in your energy costs clarity. You cannot say you value peace while surrounding yourself with chaos. You cannot say you value growth while resisting feedback. You cannot say you value your spark while ignoring what drains it. You begin to reclaim yourself by watching how you respond in small moments. When someone interrupts your rhythm, do you drop everything to accommodate? When your energy dips, do you push through and disconnect? When you feel off-center, do you pause and reset or distract and deny? Your micro-decisions determine your magnetic field. You don't need to fix your whole life. You need to make better micro-decisions. Over and over. Until the new standard becomes your normal. Until clarity becomes your automatic setting. Until saying no doesn't feel like a confrontation, but a return to coherence. Protecting your energy is not about being rigid. It's about being real. Real with what you need. Real with what you value. Real with how quickly your alignment collapses when you betray yourself. Most people live in constant realignment because they refuse to protect themselves from what repeatedly throws them off. You cannot attract consistency while allowing chaos to access you unfiltered. This doesn't mean you live in a bubble. It means you choose to design your life around what actually supports your expansion instead of what keeps your nervous system in defense mode. Your spark does not need to be louder. It needs to be less interrupted. You don't need more motivation. You need less emotional leakage. You don't need to feel inspired every day. You need to stop scattering your energy. That means cleaning your space. That means moving your body. That means closing the loops. That means choosing your thoughts. That means checking in, not checking out. Your attention is currency. Where you spend it is what you invest in. And the investment either expands your clarity or feeds your confusion. Everything that enters your field is either supporting your coherence or breaking it. That includes your thoughts, your food, your relationships, your content, your movement, your sleep, your self-talk. Nothing is neutral. That's not pressure. That's power. That means you have the authority to reshape your field at any time by changing what you allow. And once you change what you allow, you change what you attract. Not someday. Instantly. Because the field doesn't wait for your results. It responds to your frequency. Chapter 7. There is a distinct difference between effort and frequency. Effort tries to convince the world you're ready. Frequency proves it without saying a word. And if you've ever wondered why certain people seem to move through life with less friction, it's not because they're working harder. It's because their field is clearer. Their energy is clean. Their expectations are congruent with their behavior. Their values are protected. Their time is guarded. Their self-concept is stable enough that they don't need to push, chase, or impress in order to be magnetic. They attract not because they manipulate perception, but because they've become internally organized to such a degree that life has no choice but to reflect that organization back to them. Clarity attracts clarity. And if you are not experiencing it, that does not mean you're unworthy. It simply means there is noise in your field. That noise may come from inconsistency. It may come from living according to expectations that no longer match your truth. It may come from unprocessed emotion that you've hidden under productivity. It may come from chasing goals that were never yours. Whatever the source, the effect is the same, an unstable signal. And a weak or unstable signal does not create momentum. It creates fluctuation. It creates half-open doors. It creates almost moments. And you were not built for almost. Your spark was never meant to flicker. But you've normalized a lifestyle that extinguishes it daily. You override your intuition. You outsource your decisions. You ignore your body's wisdom. You fill every moment with sound, light, distraction, stimulation, performance. And then you wonder why clarity doesn't arrive. You wonder why intuition feels distant. You wonder why your actions don't feel connected to your soul. But the answer is not in more doing. The answer is in less interruption. In deeper stillness. In rebuilding your internal connection from the ground up, until the way you move becomes the proof of who you are. The inner spark becomes magnetic when you trust your timing. Not blind trust. Not passive waiting. A deep, structured, grounded trust that's built on pattern recognition and personal authority. Trust doesn't mean you stop moving. It means you stop forcing. It means you stop acting from fear. It means you know how to distinguish between inspired urgency and survival urgency. Inspired urgency is clean, focused, electric. It comes from alignment. Survival urgency is frantic, heavy, reactive. It comes from fear. The more you learn to feel the difference between these two, the more powerful your signal becomes. You have to understand that timing is not emotional. It's structural. It's energetic. When something is not aligned yet, it's not because you're doing something wrong. It's because the field is still adjusting to the clarity you're building. But if you break your structure every time the external world doesn't move fast enough, you send a signal of inconsistency. And you cannot attract consistently from inconsistency. You must hold the line. You must keep showing up with the same internal energy, regardless of whether results arrive immediately. That is not delusion. That is leadership. The way you hold your frequency when the outcome is delayed is the ultimate test of alignment. That's where most people collapse. Not because they lack ability, but because they interpret the delay as a message that they're unworthy. So they stop. Or they shift into force. Or they abandon the practices that were actually building momentum. But attraction has no interest in your impatience. The field doesn't reward urgency. It rewards coherence. And coherence only builds in rhythm. Not in doubt. Not in emotional reaction. Not in constant self-interruption. You must learn to hold energy. Not just generate it. Anyone can be high frequency for an hour. That's not the point. The point is, can you stay grounded in your intention even when nothing around you seems to respond? Can you still trust your structure when the feedback is quiet? Can you still move with clarity even when the path looks uncertain? That is frequency stability. That is signal depth. That is how the field starts moving things behind the scenes faster than you could ever move them with force alone. Signal depth is built through repetition. Not complicated routines. Just consistent anchoring. You wake up the same way. You breathe before you check. You move before you consume. You create before you respond. You don't wait for mood. You move from identity. You do not allow the weather of your emotion to decide what kind of day it will be. You are not trying to feel better. You are reinforcing what you already decided matters. You are proving to yourself that clarity is not based on how much external approval you get, it's based on how often you return to your internal compass. You were not designed to live in constant output. You were designed to cycle through creation, reflection, recalibration, restoration, and renewed direction. If you skip those phases, your spark burns out. Not because you're weak, but because you've replaced alignment with performance. And performance is not sustainable. You can produce results for a while, but if the internal signal is disorganized, you will always return to exhaustion. That exhaustion isn't from doing too much. It's from doing too much of what doesn't support your real frequency. When you start living from signal instead of strategy, you build trust with yourself. That trust becomes your baseline. You no longer look for proof that your path is valid. You walk it. You no longer ask for confirmation every step. You calibrate from within. And because your internal clarity is no longer dependent on fast outcomes, your magnetism increases. The field begins to respond faster, not because you figured out a secret, but because you finally stopped diluting your power. Magnetism is not a trick. It is a return to coherence. You're not trying to attract more. You're trying to remember who you are without the layers of doubt, guilt, pressure, and fear. You're trying to remove the noise. To stop explaining. To stop performing. To stop waiting. To stop checking in with the external world before you move. You're not here to manage optics. You're here to master frequency. And mastery is not about perfection. It's about stability. Stability is what builds the conditions where your spark no longer flickers, it expands. Chapter 8. The stability of your inner world determines the stability of what you attract. You don't receive based on how much you want something. You receive based on how consistently you can remain calm, open, clear, and focused in its direction, especially when nothing seems to be happening. Most people block the very thing they say they want by reacting too quickly, doubting too fast, or shifting too soon. They abandon aligned paths because impatience disguises itself as urgency. But urgency is not clarity. Urgency is fear. And fear distorts your energy. Fear weakens your signal. Fear disrupts your field and demands that you fix what isn't broken, simply because it doesn't move fast enough. You are not here to panic your way into alignment. You are not here to manipulate outcomes or chase proof. You are here to become the type of person who no longer interrupts their own frequency when life appears silent. You are here to build an internal structure so steady, so anchored, so consistent, that attraction becomes a function of who you are, not what you do on your best day. The moment you stop confusing speed with alignment, the moment you stop assuming that more effort equals more magnetism, is the moment your reality begins to adjust to the quality of your stillness. Stillness is not inactivity. It is presence without resistance. It is the deep, unshakable knowing that you are operating in a state that matches your desired reality. And that match is maintained not by wishing harder or working more, but by staying emotionally available to receive, without chasing. You cannot chase and receive at the same time. Chasing creates distance. Receiving collapses that distance. And receiving is a nervous system skill. It requires safety. It requires regulation. It requires clearing the part of you that still feels like receiving is something to earn rather than something to embody. Your ability to attract consistently is not based on how loud your desire is. It's based on how clearly your energy holds the expectation of receiving without resistance. That means no more grasping. No more questioning your worth just because the timeline doesn't match your emotions. No more collapsing into doubt when life asks you to wait. You don't need to be tested. You need to be trusted. And the way the field learns to trust you is through consistency, not intensity. It doesn't respond to how badly you want something. It responds to how often you hold the frequency without contradiction. Contradiction is what weakens attraction. When your thoughts say yes, but your actions say no, the field gets confused. When your schedule says peace, but your nervous system is in chaos, your signal gets distorted. When your words claim abundance, but your habits reflect fear, the current breaks. That doesn't make you wrong. That makes you human. But if you want to become magnetic, you must become consistent. Not perfectly. Practically. Consistently enough that your field stabilizes, your thoughts align with your emotions align with your actions, and your actions align with your values. There is no attraction without coherence. And coherence is not abstract. It's practical. It looks like showing up on the days when nothing is exciting. It looks like choosing the aligned action instead of the familiar escape. It looks like saying no to the energy that used to distract you just because you've outgrown the version of yourself who needed it. It looks like regulating your body before reacting to the temporary discomfort of a delayed result. You cannot live in emotional turbulence and expect spiritual alignment. You cannot move from reaction and expect long-term results. You cannot build magnetism through occasional alignment. You build it through discipline that becomes natural, not forced, but automatic. Discipline is not punishment. It is a path to freedom. It frees you from the emotional loops that keep your spark dimmed. It frees you from the inconsistency that fractures your field. It frees you from the shame that rises every time you abandon yourself in small decisions. You don't need more accountability. You need more internal agreements that you actually keep. You need habits that reflect your values. You need structure that reinforces your standard. You need boundaries that don't require justification. You need to stop managing your life around fear of discomfort and start organizing it around the kind of peace that grows when you no longer question your direction. There will always be tension between the old self and the aligned self. And that tension is not your enemy. It's your training ground. The space between impulse and choice is where frequency is forged. And if you learn to sit in that space without flinching, to hold your alignment when it's not convenient, to protect your values even when emotions rise, then you stop being someone who hopes life changes and you become someone whose presence changes the rhythm of any space they enter. The world doesn't respond to force. It responds to clarity. That clarity must be felt, not spoken. Lived, not planned. Built into your choices, your responses, your movement, your rest, your relationships. Clarity is when you no longer entertain versions of yourself that you've already outgrown. You no longer repeat cycles you've already healed. You no longer dilute your energy just to be understood. You stand in a frequency so stable, so clean, so practiced, that everything outside of you either rises to meet it or fades out of resonance. You are not here to convince the world to give you what you want. You are here to become the version of yourself who can hold it, embody it, protect it, sustain it. And you do that not through pressure, but through presence. Not through urgency, but through groundedness. Not through control, but through calibration. Calibration is how you shift your internal environment to match your external intentions. It's how you regulate instead of react. It's how you pause instead of panic. It's how you respond from structure instead of spiraling into urgency. You are not weak for wanting ease. You are not lazy for wanting flow. You are not unrealistic for wanting to build a life around energy instead of obligation. That is how attraction becomes simple. Not through luck. Through alignment. You build your reality from the inside out. And every decision you make to protect that alignment becomes a signal to the field. It says, I'm not here to perform. I'm not here to chase. I'm not here to manipulate outcomes. I am here to hold energy. I am here to lead myself. I am here to live in coherence until reality adjusts itself around my signal. Chapter 9. Your capacity to attract is only as strong as your ability to remain grounded while life moves unpredictably around you. It's easy to talk about alignment when everything is flowing, when your ideas are supported, when your rhythm is uninterrupted. But your true level of magnetism is revealed in the middle of uncertainty. It shows up when the path is unclear, when results are delayed, when your structure is tested. If your alignment depends on ideal conditions, it isn't alignment, it's convenience. You can't build a magnetic field that collapses under pressure. You can't attract from clarity if that clarity disappears every time resistance shows up. You need a deeper root system. One that doesn't react to every shift. One that holds its shape through challenge. One that knows how to keep the signal strong even when external movement pauses. Everything you are calling into your life requires a level of stability that goes beyond intention. It requires you to operate from a system that no longer needs constant validation. A system that no longer collapses every time you don't get immediate confirmation. That kind of stability doesn't come from strategy. It comes from discipline. Not in how much you do. In how well you stay within alignment when results aren't loud. You don't attract by always winning. You attract by consistently holding the energy of someone who already knows their outcome is secure. That kind of inner security makes you magnetic not because you say the right things, but because you've stopped leaking energy through doubt. Doubt is what distorts the signal. Doubt is not a failure to believe in the universe. Doubt is a failure to believe in your own consistency. When you say, I don't know if it's working, what you often mean is, I haven't stayed in alignment long enough without breaking the rhythm. The field is not confused. You are. And that confusion doesn't come from lack of information. It comes from too much self-interruption. You can't attract from a state that keeps changing its direction. You need to decide who you are and then stay there long enough for life to catch up to that decision. You don't need more signs. You need more structure. You need to get better at being the version of yourself who doesn't abandon their rhythm just because life isn't clapping for them yet. You don't build magnetism through moments of inspiration. You build it by reducing the gap between who you say you are and how you actually move when nobody is watching. That's what makes attraction real. Not the intensity of desire. The integrity of your actions. When you reduce contradiction, you increase clarity. And clarity doesn't need to be shouted. It's quiet. It's directional. It's focused. It doesn't need to explain itself. It doesn't wait for permission. It's not emotional. It's structured. When your clarity is structured, your magnetism becomes stable. People can feel it. The field can feel it. You become readable. And life responds not to your need, but to your clarity. That's why it's not about how badly you want something. It's about how deeply your actions reflect the frequency of already receiving it. People make attraction complicated because they keep trying to mix old emotional habits with new intentions. You say you want peace, but you still chase closure. You say you want expansion, but you keep shrinking to fit into old patterns. You say you want growth, but you build your schedule around people who drain your clarity. This has nothing to do with worth and everything to do with precision. Precision in your decisions. Precision in your pace. Precision in your energy. When your life becomes a reflection of precision instead of pressure, your field becomes undeniable. You cannot stay magnetic while living in emotional chaos. Your nervous system must be your foundation. That means building systems that make calm your default, not a luxury. That means reducing sensory overload. That means organizing your life to reduce friction. That means turning your mornings into a reset, not a race. That means ending your day from a place of integration, not exhaustion. You don't need a perfect routine. You need rituals that anchor you in clarity. You need habits that remind your body it is safe to stay open. Because openness is the frequency of receiving. Most people say they want alignment, but their days are full of friction. They fill every hour. They multitask through every block of time. They overstimulate their mind. They allow interruptions that feel normal, but they add up into hours of energetic static. Static is what weakens the field. Static is what makes you second-guess your clarity. Static is what invites misalignment. And you don't eliminate static by adding more. You eliminate it by reducing what doesn't belong. Clean your space. Organize your inputs. Filter what gets access to your mind. Not because you need to be perfect, but because your energy is too valuable to be scattered. Every input is either reinforcing your signal or weakening it. Every message you read. Every conversation you entertain. Every thought you let run unchecked. Every time you ignore your body and override it with noise. These aren't small leaks. These are the exact reasons why magnetism breaks down. You must build a life that protects the conditions for magnetism. That means being willing to choose silence over reaction. That means being comfortable not explaining your every decision. That means resting when your body says rest, not when your guilt says it's allowed. That means stopping the cycle of proving your worth through constant movement. Your movement is not what creates your value. Your alignment is. Magnetism doesn't mean everything goes smoothly. It means you stop letting difficulty throw off your direction. It means you stay grounded when things wobble. It means you keep your rituals when you're tired. You hold your boundaries when you're tested. You protect your peace when chaos tries to pull you in. This is not about being strong all the time. It's about being stable enough to return to yourself faster. That return is what creates momentum. That return is what builds your field. Your magnetism is not built in the dramatic moments. It's built in your ability to maintain your energy through repetition, through clarity, through small but powerful acts of consistency, through daily recalibration, through the inner knowing that your signal is clear, not because life looks easy, but because you are no longer contradicting it. That's when everything changes. That's when attraction stops being a concept and becomes a reflection of your daily alignment. Chapter 11. You cannot maintain a magnetic frequency if your identity constantly shifts with your circumstances. Alignment is not based on how life treats you. Alignment is based on how you treat yourself when life doesn't go according to plan. You lose magnetism the moment you allow your self-concept to be shaped by external events. Every time you let a result define your direction, every time you let someone's opinion adjust your pace, every time you allow your emotional reaction to override your structure, you weaken the clarity of your signal. And without signal clarity, attraction becomes unstable. Not because you're broken, but because you've made your field reactive instead of intentional. The strongest attraction comes from those who move from a core identity that does not depend on circumstances to remain valid. These are the people who do not need constant feedback to maintain consistency. They don't need to be praised to remain present. They don't need to be seen to stay grounded. They don't require validation to keep living in truth. That's because their identity is internalized. It's embedded into their nervous system. It's built into their rituals. It's part of the way they breathe, the way they move, the way they respond. And when identity becomes embodied, results become inevitable. You are not here to chase confidence. You are here to create conditions that make confidence your default. And confidence is not about pretending to be certain. It is the quiet authority of someone who has built enough structure in their behavior that their doubts no longer derail their alignment. Confidence is built when you stop outsourcing the responsibility of direction to anyone else. It's built when you stop waiting to feel like someone who belongs, and start acting like someone who stopped needing to belong in order to move. You are not here to be approved. You are here to be accurate in your energy. Your spark can only thrive in a system that protects the truth of who you are, even when it's inconvenient. That means removing the patterns that reward you for self-abandonment. That means no longer calling yourself disciplined while constantly making exceptions that sabotage your clarity. That means building boundaries that do not collapse when your old emotional stories get triggered. You are not here to repeat your healing cycles forever. You are here to graduate from them through consistent, energetic accuracy. You do not need to keep learning the same lesson in new disguises. At some point, you have to stop negotiating with the parts of you that only know how to operate through conflict. Conflict becomes irrelevant the moment you stop arguing with your alignment. You don't need to defend it. You don't need to convince anyone of it. You don't need to fight to keep it. You simply stop responding to anything that doesn't match it. You stop proving. You stop explaining. You stop compromising. You protect your spark not through intensity, but through refusal. Refusal to let urgency steal your rhythm. Refusal to let fear shape your decisions. Refusal to let emotional noise become your baseline. People think alignment means feeling good. It doesn't. It means feeling clear. It means you know exactly what belongs and what doesn't. It means you stop delaying your standards for the sake of comfort. It means you no longer need to emotionally rehearse every scenario before you act. You move because it's time. You stop because it's aligned. You reset because your field matters. That's the level of simplicity that creates power. Not more doing. More coherence. You reclaim coherence by subtracting what weakens your energy. That means saying no to anything you've outgrown, even if it once served you. That means dropping habits that feel familiar but are rooted in survival. That means leaving spaces that reward your silence but punish your truth. That means shifting your relationship with time, so you stop treating every moment as a crisis and start moving like someone who trusts the pace of alignment. Alignment doesn't always move fast, but it always moves forward. You build forward movement through rhythm. Rhythm is not about motivation. It's about consistency. And consistency is not about being perfect every day. It's about knowing what your system needs in order to stabilize your signal. If you keep changing your routine every time your mood shifts, your system stays confused. If you only show up when results are instant, your energy field never stabilizes. If you keep quitting rituals because they're not exciting, you reinforce the exact instability that's weakening your attraction. Your job is to stop treating your spark like it's optional. It's not. It is the foundation for every aligned result in your life. And it cannot coexist with emotional chaos, unclear standards, or inconsistent behavior. You don't need to fix everything. You need to remove what no longer reflects your direction. You need to stop tolerating what doesn't match your truth. You need to simplify your structure until your nervous system believes that alignment is safe. Because once it's safe, it becomes sustainable. Chapter 12. You will never create lasting attraction from a life that is built on disconnection. You can chase results, accumulate success, receive validation, experience breakthroughs, and still feel empty if your energy is not rooted in truth. The final level of attraction is not about getting what you want. It is about becoming someone who no longer depends on results to remain in alignment. You reach this state not by force, but by living in a way where your spark becomes your default setting. You stop seeking external proof to feel secure. You stop looking for permission to stay consistent. You stop waiting to be seen before you stand fully in your energy. You lead with the energy that builds your reality and allow everything else to follow. Magnetism is not maintained through control. It is maintained through energetic self-respect. That self-respect shows up in how you speak to yourself when no one is listening. It shows up in how you regulate your nervous system after a setback. It shows up in how you move when no one claps. It shows up in how you hold your clarity when your emotions want to distort it. You cannot become magnetic if you constantly betray your own values. You cannot expect coherence while living in contradiction. You cannot hold a powerful signal if your identity is built around reacting to life instead of designing it. You build attraction by becoming unavailable for anything that weakens your signal. That means you stop participating in your own misalignment. You stop replaying the past. You stop checking for reassurance. You stop asking the same question after you've already received the answer. You stop adjusting your pace for people who aren't ready to match it. You stop arguing with your clarity. You stop delaying your peace. You stop looking for motivation and start living as someone who decided long ago what they would no longer tolerate. You do not need more planning. You need fewer decisions made from fear. You need to eliminate the behaviors that say, "I don't trust myself." Every time you delay action because of emotion, you teach your body that doubt is in charge. Every time you stop moving because someone questioned your pace, you teach your nervous system that external perception is more powerful than internal truth. And every time you shrink to fit into places you've outgrown, you reduce the power of your signal. This is not about being perfect. This is about being precise. Precision is the highest form of alignment. Living from precision doesn't mean you never rest. It means your rest is intentional. It doesn't mean you never change. It means your changes come from clarity, not reaction. It doesn't mean you're never emotional. It means you no longer let emotions dictate direction. You feel, but you don't collapse. You notice, but you don't spiral. You adapt, but you don't forget who you are. That is what it means to live as the spark. Not to perform, but to maintain an energetic standard that stays the same whether life is clapping or silent. Most people don't need more power. They need fewer contradictions. They need to stop leaking energy into thoughts that were never theirs. They need to stop negotiating with parts of themselves that only exist to delay action. They need to stop entertaining options that never deserved to be considered. You don't need a better future. You need a cleaner present. You need to organize your now. You need to clear the clutter that disconnects you from your own signal. That means your space, your time, your food, your content, your thoughts, your breath, your choices. All of it either brings you closer to coherence or pulls you out of it. You don't attract peace by craving it. You attract peace by creating space for it. You attract abundance by organizing your life so that receiving is no longer disruptive. You attract clarity by removing noise before you ask for more answers. And you attract from power when your state no longer changes every time someone else doesn't understand it. There's a level of alignment where life stops being a chase and becomes a mirror, where you no longer try to manage timing. You manage energy. You manage attention. You manage your nervous system. You manage your values. You manage your structure. And the field handles the rest. The calls come. The people align. The doors open. Not because you're lucky, but because you finally stopped sending mixed signals. And when your signal is clean, everything accelerates. Not by force, but by frequency. You have everything you need. Not in theory. In practice. Your body knows what to release. Your system knows what to prioritize. Your energy knows what to protect. You don't need to become someone else. You need to remove what's no longer part of your alignment. You need to subtract, not add. You need to live in a way that matches the version of you who no longer waits for life to change before choosing to operate from power. That version of you is already here. Waiting for consistency. Waiting for space. Waiting for rhythm. Waiting for permission to stop waiting.